Hi everyone, I'm Hayley and I usually start these videos by saying, and I'm always in the craft room, but it feels like this week I'm always in the hospital. I've had a bit of a rough week. If you are just here for the craft, I will put some timestamps below, click forward because I do have a couple of updates on that front. But if you want the full story of why I've been quiet on YouTube, grab a drink and settle down. So this week I have had two completely separate and unrelated hospital procedures, one day apart. One of them was scheduled and planned for a long time, very routine and quite minor, and the other one ended up being a bit of an emergency. But look, I'm absolutely fine now, I hope, fingers crossed. To fill you in on what's been going on, last week I was having some visual disturbances, as they say. I was seeing flashing lights. It was basically like there was lightning on a perfectly sunny summer's day. So I rang my optician, explained what was going on. She called me in and said she'd like to have a good look. And she did. She gave me some dilating eye drops, had a bit of a poke around, couldn't find anything at all wrong, and said, look, honestly, it's probably just old age setting in, nothing to worry about. But just to cross all the I's and dot all the T's, she referred me on to an ophthalmologist for a few more investigations just to make sure that everything was fine. So on Monday morning, off I went to the ophthalmologist appointment, hoping that he would just say, it's nothing, but you know, good to have had a look. But unfortunately, he said the words one never wants to hear from a medical professional. Well, it's a very good job you came to see me. And he dispatched me off to the eye hospital emergency department with a letter explaining that I had a tear in my retina. Now, he did say that it was very, very treatable and, you know, we'd caught it early, all good news. But he also did mention that Monday was the day that a lot of doctors were striking across the NHS in England and I might have a bit of a wait. So yeah, I went to the eye hospital and we're lucky enough to live within driving distance of a specialist eye hospital. I was triaged actually really quickly. And then within a couple of hours, I saw another ophthalmologist who confirmed the diagnosis of a retinal tear and said I would need a laser procedure to seal the tear. But they were very busy because of the strike and I would just have to sit and wait. So yeah, I had laser vision correction about 15 years ago, and look, I'm so pleased I had it done. It's been amazing. As a teen and young adult, I was fairly short-sighted and had to wear glasses or contact lenses every waking minute of the day to correct my vision. And since I had that laser eye procedure, my vision is almost 20/20 and has remained that way. So very glad I had that done back in the day. But I will say the procedure itself, I did not enjoy at all. So there I was in the hospital waiting room. And of course, these things only ever happen in the school holidays, don't they? So my husband and kids dropped me off because I'd had the dilating eye drops and I couldn't drive. And then off they went. So I didn't want the kids hanging around in a hospital waiting room, either for them or all of the other people there. So I was just sitting by myself thinking about this upcoming laser procedure. And this is where I must interrupt this broadcast with a book recommendation because look, this book got me through a difficult day. Hang on. I'm talking about Robert Harris's The Second Sleep. And since it's story time, let's just go with the full backstory. When I first went to the optician and had the dilating eye drops, again, I couldn't drive. So my husband and kids dropped me off and then they went to the park to play. And when I was finished at the optician, they were having such a great time. I didn't want to interrupt them, but I also didn't want to sit in a park in blazing sunshine with dilated retinas. So I thought I'll go and sit in the library, which is nice and quiet and chill. And I went because if you've ever had those really dilating eye drops, my distance vision was very blurry and I felt quite dizzy. They were like throwing off my sense of balance. So I just wanted to sit in calm, quiet and peace. And I love a library anyway. But I do know my local librarians in the village library, and I knew if I just sat in the corner, like with my eyes closed, they'd come and ask if I was all right, which so kind. And if I'd needed assistance, they would have given it no question. But I didn't want to make a fuss. I was absolutely fine. I just felt a little bit nauseated. So I found my comfy chair, and then I looked up and there was a display of like new books or recommended titles or whatever. And one of them was this. And I'd recently read of Robert Harris and really enjoyed it. So I picked this up kind of to be my cover story. And I thought I'd just sit in an easy chair and pretend to be reading with my eyes closed. But because I was feeling really sick, I started reading it as a distraction. And look, if you're at a place in your life where you need a distraction, may I humbly recommend The Second Sleep. Do not read any reviews. Don't even read the blurb. Don't read inside the front sleeve. Just go in not knowing, because the twist, it comes quick and it is so good. Like literally the paragraph where the twist is revealed, I read it. And then I was like, no, I've misunderstood. And I read it again and it was brilliant. The rest of the book maybe doesn't quite live up to the twist, but that's more because the twist is so good rather than the rest of the book isn't. But it's, I mean, I don't think the writing is anything particularly special. It's very much a plot-driven book. But if you just need a page turner, this is it. So when the ophthalmologist had sent me to the eye hospital, I nipped home to get a bag because I knew there'd be quite a long wait. And one of the things I threw in was the library book and snacks and hand sanitizer and lip balm, all the essentials. And honestly, this book saw me through what ended up being an 8-hour wait for my procedure. And towards the end of it, I was genuinely more worried that my book was going to run out than I was about the procedure. I got down to the last 40 pages and I was like, what if I still haven't been seen and this book runs out? I will be freaking out. So yeah, what a great distraction. Anyway, as it happened, the procedure was like nothing. It was nothing like what I had to have done to correct my vision. It was honestly no worse than going to the opticians. You know when they do that puff in your eye? I hate that. It wasn't even that bad. I've had so many puffs in my left eye this week. Anyway, the procedure was honestly a breeze. The wait leading up to it, where I was getting a bit, was not the best, but thankfully I had my book. And yeah, I did end up coming home with the procedure completely done at about 10 o'clock on Monday night. But as I said to my husband, I had used up quite a lot of my brave during that wait and the whole day. And then I woke up on Tuesday morning to an already scheduled procedure to have my varicose veins treated. So you might see I keep fiddling with this leg, that's why. So this is a procedure that I've been putting off now for about 5 years. And of course it came around the same week as my eye issues. And the reason I've been putting it off is because I have a quite severe phobia of veins. I'm not going to discuss anything gross, don't worry, because, you know, phobia. But yeah, I'd already used up quite a lot of my bravery and then I had to go in and have this done. So I've had 2 varicose veins since my pregnancy, which are nothing to look at. You couldn't even barely see them, but they were so painful and they throbbed and they really were bothering me. And as I said, I've been putting it off for so long. And yeah, this year was the year I was going to get it done because, as my husband said, if I'm ever going to get it done, I might as well have it done when I'm younger and get more years of the benefit of having the treatment. And also, you do heal better the younger you are. And, you know, I'm never going to be 43 and a half again, am I? I'm only getting older. So yeah, in I went to have the procedure on Tuesday, and I'm not going to lie, it was freaking horrible. I don't want to put you off if you need it done. For a normal person, I'm sure it was next to nothing. It only took half an hour and I walked out of there. But yeah, it was pretty rough. And I think I've been so focused on getting through the procedure that I hadn't really thought about the recovery and even the procedure. I was hyperventilating so badly during it that the nurse had to go and get me a paper bag. It was like, I can laugh about it now, but only because otherwise I would be crying. And when I got up from the operating table, they put down one of those absorbent mats to soak up any bodily fluids, and there were none from the procedure. The vascular surgeon was amazing. There wasn't even any blood on the table whatsoever, but there was a full outline of my shape in sweat because I had just been breaking out in the cold sweats so badly. I did scream a couple of times. I nearly fainted, but look, I'm through to the other side. So Wednesday I spent with my leg elevated, getting up every half an hour for a walk. So I've been walking around the garden every half an hour, every waking half an hour, I should say, since the procedure. The rest of the time I've had my leg elevated. Yesterday, so where are we now? I'm filming this on Saturday. So Wednesday, stayed home, elevated, walking. Thursday, I had to go back to the ophthalmologist to check that they had done a good job sealing the retinal tear. So I had to go and see the ophthalmologist without having a shower. I felt so gross. My leg was bandaged from toe to hip. Anyway, he was amazing and so sympathetic. And I'm pleased to say he did a full inspection, took loads of special photos, and the retinal tear has been, how did he describe it? The hospital ophthalmologist did a cracking job. He showed me all of the scar tissue. They've sealed all the way around it. Should never cause me any more problem. I am at increased risk of further retinal tears because I've had one, but this one is tick sorted, so that's amazing. And Friday night I was allowed to take off the full surgical compression bandage, which that was such a relief, and have a shower for the first time since Tuesday. So yeah, now I'm still wearing surgical compression leggings, but they are much more comfortable, partly because it's both legs getting compression. I think that was part of what was irritating me so much. Anyway, I've gone on about this enough. Long story short, I had an eye procedure, I had a leg procedure. So far, touch wood, everything is fine and I'm recovering well, but yeah, I've been a big baby about the whole thing. Anyway, onto the craft. Oh, and I also just need to say, very fortunate that I live close by to an ophthalmologist, an eye hospital, and that I have access to all this wonderful medical care. And also, despite being the world's biggest wimp, my nurse was the absolute kindest. She literally called my name in the waiting room and I burst out crying. And instead of like saying, "Stop it, you idiot, this is very routine," she just took me under her wing and was so kind. So yeah. And also my husband has been wonderful. And if you saw a sticker on my legs, it might have fallen off actually. The reason I've got a sticker on one leg is so that my kids know which one not to bounce on. So everyone's been wonderful. Right, now on to the craft. Obviously I needed a distraction while I've been sitting on the sofa, so I finished my crochet raffia handbag, and this turned out even better than I thought. I absolutely love it. I think in the raffia, because I had made this before in cotton, it's so cool and structural, and you can really see the square shape because you start off with a granny square and then the granny square ends up on the diagonal, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now it does obviously have a lot of holes in it, so my hack for that is that I keep everything in a little makeup bag, and honestly I do this anyway just because I swap handbags a lot. And do you want to play that game, what's in your handbag? What is in my handbag? Loads of little things that probably would slip through these holes. So yeah, tiny chignon pins, ibuprofen because, you know, leg, little hairbrush, hand cream, lip balm, AirPods. So I do just swap this between bags anyway. So with that tucked in there, it feels really secure. And I throw my phone in as well, and I never feel like it's going anywhere. But the amazing bonus of this bag, which I wasn't expecting, was how lightweight it feels when you wear it. It's like air, because it's only made of paper. So I think that is such a cute, summery little handbag. And it's just absolutely perfect for what I wanted it for, which is running quick errands, nipping on the school run. 10 out of 10. I will link the pattern for this bit below. That pattern suggests pre-made straps. Obviously, I just freestyled my own using another tutorial, which I will also link. So I absolutely love that. And yeah, I have now still got loads of balls of raffia left because I was planning to do a much bigger bag, but we will come to that, because on to my new crochet project, which is the I'll Pencil You In sweater. I know it makes me sound like a crotchety old lady, but some of these pattern names are really a bit silly, aren't they? So I showed you when I first bought this yarn, which is the Wool and the Gang cotton, I showed you my first sample, which turned out much, much too big. In fact, the pattern goes that way. So I tried it on a much smaller hook and it was too small. You can see the difference in the stitch sizes. This ended up too small and a bit too rigid. You can see that's not got much drape. This was too holey for what I wanted, because this yarn is 100% cotton but quite fluffy, and I am aiming for a winter jumper, and I wouldn't normally wear a winter jumper of pure wool, so I do want it to be quite dense. So tried again with a different hook size in case you don't crochet. How dense and how big your pattern, your garment ends up depends on what size hook you need, and the differences in hook sizes are very small. So the difference between these two samples is a hook size of 0.5 millimeter, but they have come out quite different. And I decided this was about perfect. Now, I have hit another snag, because then I started actually making it every time I've started a new ball of wool so that I can maintain my samples. Where is the actual start of the jumper? It's here. It doesn't look like much, does it? But basically, every other crochet garment that I have made has been made either in panels that you then stitch together or in the round. So you can check from the beginning that it's fitting, you can try it on, or you can flat measure it. And to get the length, you just keep going until either you run out of yarn, which is usually me, or it's as long as you want it. This particular pattern is done up and down. Your very first starting chain, which is this, is the length of the garment, and then you work your rows like this across ways. And this is longer than it should be. So I do need to adjust the size some more, make a smaller size, change the hooks. I haven't really decided, but it's wrong. Now, the other issue with this is in crochet, you have stitches going this way and rows going that way, but the finished garment is going to be that way. And when you make a little swatch to check that it's coming out the right size, I always find it much easier to get the stitch count correct than I do the row count, because the stitch count is really very dependent on your hook size. How deep your row comes out depends more on your personal tension, how loose or how tight you crochet, and that's quite difficult to alter and then stick to consistently. And the one thing you don't want is a varying tension throughout the garment, because it will look all kinds of wonky. So usually I work very hard on getting the stitch count, which usually goes around correct, and then the row count I can decide on later to see how long I want the garment. But in this one, the stitch count is down and the row count determines how wide it is and whether it fits or not. So yeah, this is going to be a tricky crochet, but I don't care because I love the yarn so much, I love the pattern so much, and I do enjoy a challenge, and it is basically just algebra. So I need to do some more work on working out my starting stitch count. I think I have an idea, but isn't that a gorgeous colour? One thing leads to another with me, doesn't it? And I don't have a crochet bag big enough for all of these balls because, as I say, I keep starting another sample from a new ball. So then I decided to start a new crochet basket because, like I said, I've got so many balls of this raffia, and this is great as a handbag. It's exactly as I wanted it. But for a basket, it possibly is a bit flimsy. So what I decided, throwing things everywhere, was to hold 2 strands together of the raffia and make a basket. And this is much more structured. So I'm using a much bigger, woo! It's not going well today, is it? I'm not quite myself, honestly. A size 9 hook, which is very chunky. And I'm doing them double, and I'm just freestyling this. I mean, I say freestyling, there's an established pattern to make a circle. You start off with 6, and then you increase in every stitch, and then you increase and do a single, increase and do a single, and then the next row you increase and do 2 singles, and the next row you increase, do 3 singles, next row increase 4 singles. You get it. I do alter where I put the increases because otherwise you get quite a hexagonal shape if you stack all the increases together. I'm aiming for round. And yeah, this is great because I don't have to think about it. I can just elevate my leg, crochet without having to look at a pattern. Obviously this is a lot more involved and I have to be a bit fresher, but I'm still really enjoying working with that yarn. And finally, for the sewing update, wait there. I found it. The missing white fabric. I say I found it, you guys found it. I asked you where to look for a missing piece of white fabric and I had some great suggestions. One which I was really hopeful about was in the stack of white towels. Oh, I went running off to the bathroom and it wasn't there. But the winning suggestion, thank you so much if this was from you, was, Hayley, if it's just 1 metre of white fabric, could it have got thrown in with the scraps? Ding, ding, ding. That's where it was. It was in the scrap drawer. I think my kids had been in there pulling loads of stuff out, and then I did like a blast clean of the craft room and swept up a big pile of scraps, and this just looked like nothing. If it had been like all folded up neatly, I probably would have known it was a cut of fabric. But no, when it was all screwed up, it just looked like a scrap, and that's exactly where it was. So thank you so much. I'm thrilled to have found it because, yeah, all summer I've had outfits in mind that needed a white t-shirt to complete them because I have made quite a few pairs of like funky trousers, and also my lovely bias cut skirt I've hardly worn because I have nothing to go on top with it. So yes, this is going to be one of my next projects because the reason, I'm going to have to stand up, hang on. The reason I've hardly got any sewing done is that sitting on a chair really bothers my leg. I need to be up and walking about and moving or sitting with it elevated. So whilst the Simplicity dress is still in the naughty corner, I would like to try and get this cut out today if I'm feeling up to it. The Simplicity dress 2246, I think it's user error. And I think, again, my commenters have saved the day. I haven't felt up to digging through the pattern instructions yet and checking if your suspicions, which are now my suspicions, are correct. But I do think I was just being an idiot, which is great news because it means I can proceed with the dress. And yeah, so, right, we're done, I think. I'm sorry if this has been a bit scattered. It's not my usual kind of content, is it? But yeah, I've had a bit of a rough week, but I am on the mend. And yeah, if you're going through some health challenges, I really feel for you. If you are not, just take 5 minutes today to sit with a cup of tea in gratitude for feeling well, because it's something that those of us who do usually enjoy robust health take for granted, and we shouldn't. So I'll leave it at that, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. But fluff. So I'm all in a tangle, hang on. Too many balls of yarn. Forgot to turn my phone on Do Not Disturb again.